Hey everyone, let's talk about mistakes and the feedback loop of learning that creates. So for instance, the way that you learn how to swim is by treading water and by learning the skill, I mean, it's sink or swim in essence. Sure, you can get taught and stuff like that, but the whole point is that by making mistakes, particularly in something that requires a high set of proficiency, you're going to learn one way or another. And if you don't, then maybe you just failed, but that wouldn't be bad as long as you're trying something different. So I'm going to compare that with business, writing, and poker really fast. I'll try and integrate all three and see what I can do. But in any case, with poker, the feedback of failure is so fast, particularly when you play on online poker. You make mistakes and you learn really fast. The problem with poker also is that the ego's involved to a great extent. So when you make a mistake, and I'm being very general here, but it applies to probably every single player at one point or another, if not through a large majority of their playing, whether or not they play for a living or not. I believe everybody's experienced this, but perhaps others disagree. But the whole point is that in poker, when you start winning, a lot of the times you feel like you're the person that's brilliant. You're the one that's doing all the amazing calls and great moves and whatnot. And when you lose, it's not your fault, but it's the other person's. That's where that ego can cause a big problem. But in any case, the whole point is that along with the feedback of failure allows you to learn fast if you allow those lessons to get incorporated and you study them. One thing I learned from my roommate Anthony, him and myself studied a lot. He was as I've said in previous videos, he was a better player, skill set wise, easy. We both were very successful, but he was a better player. And for a while, it took me, a while to actually even catch up or, follow in his footsteps, so to speak. But the whole point is that it was in our failures that we started growing, and we grew rapidly, the year that we spent together learning and so on. Anyhow, that translated to me getting comfortable in scenarios that a lot of people wouldn't find comfort in. And I'm not saying comfort as in you like it, but comfort as in you're okay with it. Kind of like the winter weather. Actually, that's a perfect analogy. Like, I find comfort in winter and fall weather. That doesn't mean I have to love it. I do enjoy it, but you're there. You're not like uncomfortable is what I mean. Just because you're comfortable doesn't mean you have to like something. But in this case, I do. But that's the whole point. In any case, same can be said for business. In business, with what I've done, I've had, some successes and some failures. And it's the same as poker. The feedback of that is actually slower, but it's still there. The whole point is that it's in those failures that you can choose to learn, or you can choose to let that pretty much crush you. But it's ultimately up to you. I think that in most things in life, you probably have a better shot at making something of yourself than you probably realize. But most people aren't taught to be self-sufficient or aren't taught to think critically. Hell, the fact that the trivium and logic were removed from the school system deliberately shows how much people are missing. But that's a whole other topic altogether and something that'll be discussed. But that's not formally taught. That's a skill set. Those are things that people don't have, and if they had, they'd realize that they're more capable than what they realize. So same thing with writing. I started with writing. My failures came early, and early on was with poetry, which is fine. I was still learning, and I always felt self-conscious of the fact that it would take me forever to write a poem, like 45 minutes to an hour. This is when I was 16. And later on with writing, my book reviews were just absolutely sloppy. They weren't the worst in the world, but they were average at best. And that was in the beginning. And I didn't realize this until a year later when I look back and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I wrote that. And then I ended up growing as a writer, and I started learning, teaching myself things, purchasing books, etc., etc. And then a year later, I realized all the mistakes that I had still to learn from. But if I wasn't proactive in the learning, it wouldn't translate to part of your skill. It doesn't matter what it is in life if you're not learning from those mistakes. Sorry about that. If you're not learning from your mistakes, then you're pretty much kind of like a person that has a whole bunch of tools and it's not building anything. how useful are those tools going to be if you're not employing them? You know, they're there, but if you don't use them, then, you know, they're kind of useless. You might as well not have them. So don't overlook the fact that there's a lot of lessons and things that you can learn from your failures, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think more often than not, people should try something. But I'm a glass half full kind of person. Actually, that's very general. We wouldn't even get into that topic. The whole point is that don't overlook what you can learn from, you know, the mistakes you've made, because you can learn a lot and it'll make you a stronger person, stronger writer. Talk to you guys later. Bye.